there was garbage everywhere. I mean, it was in the water, it was under the water, it was all around the shore. It was even over on the sandy beach. And the children weren't coming to play anymore. Well, the tugboats wanted to clean up the harbor so the children would come back. They decided to have a great harbor cleanup contest. Well, that was quite an event. It was the day the tugs had all been waiting for. The day of the great harbor cleanup contest. The tugs were gathered around the dispatcher at the Great Ocean Tug and Salvage Company dock. The dispatcher was going to be the judge, and as the harbor master, I had given a special blue and green flag to go to the winner. Each tugboat announced what they were going to do in the contest. "I'm going to speak to some of the ships and boats and ask them not to throw litter in the water," said Emily proudly. "I'm going to use my underwater sonar machine to find junk on the bottom of the harbor," declared Fodak. Next, it was George's turn. "I'm going to tow some of the rusty wreck to the scrapyards," he boomed. Then Hank told everyone what he was going to do. He cleared his throat once and let out a little smoke. "I'm going to clean up all the garbage in the whole harbor," he said. The other tugs were silent a moment. Hank's plan was big. In fact, it was the biggest and best plan any of them had thought of. That is, except for Theodore. They thought Theodore would certainly have the biggest and best plan of them all. "All the good plans are taken, I guess," he said quietly. "I think I'll just clean the little wooden dock." The little wooden dock? The other tugs didn't think that was much of a plan. I mean, Theodore's plan seemed so small, and the others were so big. How would he ever win the contest? Theodore was sad. Lily the lighthouse blew her foghorn to officially begin the Great Harbor Cleanup Contest, and the tugs set off. All except for Theodore, who only floated slowly towards the little wooden dock. Emily asked Fillmore the ferry to tell his passengers to please not throw their litter in the harbor. Fodak was pulling Buena Vista barge along, and she had her special lifting crane. Fodak's sonar went poing, poing. He'd found his first piece of underwater junk. Buena Vista lowered her big hook and slowly hauled it up. George began to pull pieces of the rusty wreck up onto his deck using his strong towing rope. Hank began his big plan. He searched and he searched, and finally he found what he was looking for. An old fishing net. Meanwhile, Theodore was using his bumpers to scrub and rub away the grime and gunk on the little wooden dock. "It's a very small plan, really," he said to himself, "and I probably won't win the contest. Oh, well." Around noon that day, the tugs returned to the Great Ocean Dock to have a little rest. They were eager to report to the dispatcher about everything they had done in the contest so far. "I spoke to 7 ships, and they all promised not to litter or empty their dirty water in the harbor anymore," said Emily. "I found a junk car, lots of old oil drums, and some bumpers," announced Fodak. Now it was George's turn. "I've almost finished towing some of the rusty wreck to the scrapyards," he roared. Everyone turned to Hank. All morning long, the tugs had been keeping their eye on him, and they were all very puzzled. None of them knew quite what it was he had actually done. Hank smiled calmly and told the dispatcher, "I have finished getting ready to begin cleaning up." In a very quiet voice, Theodore said, "I've cleaned up half of the little wooden dock." After the rest, the tugs raced off to finish the contest. Hank hurried out to the middle of the big harbor. It was time to begin his big plan. "Fodak," said Hank, "you're part of my plan. I need you to use your firefighting hose to wash all the garbage off the shore." Well, Fodak was surprised to hear that he was part of Hank's big plan, but he was very pleased that Hank had thought of him. Fodak sprayed water all up and down the shore with a great whoosh that washed the garbage out to Hank, who was floating at the ready. Later, Fodak began to think to himself, "Hank is going to clean up all the garbage in the whole harbor. He'll win for sure." So Fodak decided that he would find all the junk on the bottom of the harbor. Then he would win the Great Harbor Cleanup Contest. When Emily heard that Fodak was going to clean all the junk on the bottom of the harbor, she was sure that Fodak would win the contest. So she decided she would get everyone in the harbor to stop littering. But there were so many ships and boats in the big harbor. Emily didn't know where to begin. Well, When George heard what Emily was doing, he decided to move the whole rusty wreck to the scrapyards. Then he would certainly win the contest. He tied his towing rope all around the rusty old ship. Then he gave the rope a great yank. But he hadn't been counting on the part of the wreck that was underwater. It was so heavy, George's tow rope snapped as if it were a single strand of string, and the wreck sank with a sinking sound. Fodak, who was nearby, heard the loudest poing, poing he had ever heard on his underwater sonar machine. "It looks like a big old shipwreck is down there," he said. "I'll have to clean that up, since I'm going to clean up everything." Bonavista Barge was worried, but Fodak insisted she lower her hook to pull up the great ship. But she couldn't. It was simply too big. Meanwhile, our friend Hank was proudly motoring along, gathering garbage in the old fishing net which he had lowered into the water behind him. What a great plan, he thought to himself. A great big plan. Finally, after he'd gathered a huge load of garbage in the old net, Hank decided it was time to haul it up and take it to the garbage barge. He gave his tow rope a mighty heave. As he was hauling up his great big load of garbage, Hank heard an awful sound. A ripping sound, like net ripping, like old fishing net ripping. Hank had put so much garbage in the old net, it had ripped apart. All the garbage he had been collecting so carefully floated away as if he'd never done any work at all. "I'll never clean up the whole harbor now," thought Hank, "and I won't win the contest." And he began thinking about his big plan. And the more he was thinking, the less he was doing. As a matter of fact, all the tugs were thinking. Now that their plans were so big, how would they ever get them done and win the contest? And the more they were thinking, the less they were doing. All the tugs except one. Theodore was scraping and scrubbing away on a little wooden pier. Now, he felt like stopping. "I won't win the contest," he said to himself. But he reminded himself that a tugboat never gives up. All the tugs heard Lily's horn. The great harbor cleanup contest was over. They gathered round the dispatcher, waiting for him to announce the winner. "And the winner is," said the dispatcher, and the tugs all held their breath. "Theodore." "Theodore?" The other tugboats were amazed. "But," said Fodak, "he was only cleaning a little dock." "It wasn't the biggest plan," said Hank. The dispatcher explained that Theodore was the winner because he was the only tug who finished the plan he had started, even if it was the smallest plan of all. After that, the tugboats headed out into the harbor to begin work, with Theodore flying my blue and green winner's flag. They were just passing by the sandy beach. Theodore saw that the beach was still covered in garbage. Then he saw an old sandcastle, and he remembered. In all the excitement of trying to win the contest, the tugs had forgotten all about why they had the contest in the first place. The children. They still hadn't come back. Theodore began to think. He was thinking about the great harbor cleanup contest and big plans and small plans, but most of all he was thinking about the children. The more he was thinking, the louder he raced his engine. And the louder he raced his engine, the faster his propeller went spinning and the faster Theodore went. What was he doing? "Theodore! Theodore!" cried the others. It looked like he might crash right into the beach. At the last moment, Theodore turned sharply from the beach, making a big wave that splashed up on the sand, and it washed some of the garbage into the water. Theodore kept splashing and splashing away. And even though he wasn't cleaning up the whole harbor, Theodore began to feel just as happy as if he was. "Now let's get going and clean this up as a team," yelled Theodore. And with that, all the tugs helped Theodore push the litter to the garbage barge. A little later, just as the afternoon was putting on a golden scarf for dinner, the tugs were on their way home from work, and they saw a wonderful sight. The children. The children had come back to the clean, sandy beach. Well, that day, everyone was a winner. The tugs and the children, everyone in the big harbor. Well, after that, everyone around here was a lot more careful about keeping the harbor clean, thanks to the tugs. And now, we're very proud of our home. And I polished up my buttons. I think I look rather sharp, don't you? You know, I think it's the little things well done that make all the difference. Well, thanks for visiting us here in the Big Harbor, and we'll see you again next time. Little things.
Theodore, he's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do. Pushing and a pulling in the great big harbor, in the great big world is so much fun. So many brand new things to discover. Waking with the sun, gotta get the job done. Oh, Theodore.